Welcome back to another live and amplified Indie Fusion podcast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we're back at it again with another amazing podcast. Today, we have a very special guest joining us. We have Kyle Jennings. How's it going today, man?
Oh, it's going great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's Texas. It's September in Texas, so the weather's doing some fun things. We had a nice little 5.1 earthquake last night, so that was
Really?
yeah. It luckily it was like 6 hours west of us, so we didn't really feel it, but
Wow.
still it
I
was
hadn't
an
seen
interest.
I hadn't
Yeah,
seen anything about that.
yeah,
I'm in Richland, Michigan, so I'm just east of Kalamazoo here, 20 miles or so, and we're starting to enter fall, but we're
yeah.
in that temperamental place of the Midwest where it's 48 at night and 89 and
Yep.
humid during the day, and it's a
Yep.
it's a big swing, which may be contributing to the sinus issue I'm dealing with.
Fair. It's that time of year where it could be 80 today and then you wake up tomorrow and it's snowing.
100%.
Like I
100%.
and I'm sure Kalamazoo, do you guys get a lot of like the lake effect snow in like
That's right.
December?
Yeah. Okay. So we were just talking off camera a little bit. You're from Chicago. That's right.
Yep.
Usually when I say we're in the snow belt and we get, we get some lake effect snow, people are like, well, what is that? I'm like, oh, you have to
Yeah.
explain, what lake effect snow is. And my grandfather lived in the snow belt, but my folks, growing up with my folks, it was about 25 minutes difference. And we were outside of the snow belt.
Hmm.
So we would get, 2 or 3 inches at my folks' place, and my grandfather would get like a foot and a half,
Hmm.
so it's a pretty significant difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. It's yeah, I can't even explain it. Like, yeah, I 100% get where you're coming from and
But
what
I'm
you're
a
saying.
Michigan. See, I'm wired for the Midwest. I grew up, a hockey player. I love the fall and the winter. That's what I look forward to. Moving to Nashville for so many years. Nashville gets cold enough for it to be
Yeah.
uncomfortable for the winter, but there's
Yep.
no recreation. There's no ice skating. There's no sledding. There's no, beautiful landscapes and the
Yep.
steam rising off the earth. And, so I
And
missed,
it
I love that in Michigan.
and the one thing that people don't quite understand about Nashville is like when it snows and it snows really bad, like especially here in Texas, where I'm at in Texas, we have the same issue where if there's any indication of snow or ice or anything,
Yep.
I do not leave. I'm staying in the house. You are not
Yep.
going to catch me on the road. And everybody's like, "You grew up in Chicago. You should be used to it." And I was like, "There's a very distinct difference. Chicago knows how to prepare and treat their roads.
Yep.
Nashville and Texas have no freaking idea."
Yeah, they don't
So,
have the equipment to deal with it. And the first year that I moved to Nashville, that was in 2002, and we
yep,
got a real bad winter, real bad snow there. And I say real bad snow, I mean we probably got 4 or 5 inches.
yeah,
Well, for Nashville, that's getting hammered.
oh yeah,
And my roommate at the time was from Kansas, and so we spent the afternoon driving people to their apartments from the bottom of the hill because all they know is in their head, if they hit the accelerator, if they push that pedal down farther, I'm supposed to go faster.
nope,
And that doesn't work in the snow.
nope,
So that was my first introduction to snow in the South. And subsequently, all those years after, I would have friends and they would ask me like, "Hey, you want to go do so and so tomorrow?" I'm like, "No work tomorrow." He goes, "No, we're off. It's a forecast of snow." I'm like, "Dude, it's just forecasted that you're not going in." Jeez.
yeah. That's that's pretty accurate here as well. Like it's very
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
how that tracks. But excited to have you here. It's funny. We've had a lot of Michigan musicians on recently. Like
Really.
we kind of go through spells of like where like for a little bit we were getting a lot of Wisconsin musicians and then we had a lot of Illinois musicians and now I guess we've made our way to Michigan, which I guess tracks pretty much. But the funny thing about Kalamazoo is it's one of two cities in Michigan that I'm actually somewhat familiar with because when I was in the Boy Scouts, we used to come up into that part of Michigan to go
Oh yeah.
camping.
Yeah.
We went up to like what's the military submarine that's like a little bit further north of you there.
Oh wow. I don't know about the military submarine. There's a lot of There's a lot of kind of tourist attractions up in the
Mm,
UP, the Upper Peninsula.
yeah.
So that would be like there'd be Marquette. There
Okay.
would be St. Ignace is where the bridge is
Yeah.
the upper part of where the bridge is. And then there's Munising, which is where Pictured Rocks is, and
Mm,
Tequamanon Falls. Beautiful. Just
yeah.
the UP is gorgeous. Right about now, it's going to start breaking the first part of October.
Yep.
The peak color hits sooner up there.
Yeah.
And man, there's a lot of traffic, people going north just to see the color, and it is breathtaking.
Oh yeah. I've got some friends that go up to school, or yeah, I think they're still technically in school, but they go up into the UP, and they tell me the exact same stories. It's like
Yeah.
UP, once it hits like October 15th, I don't like to go any further than like Milwaukee,
Yeah.
just because I just don't want to deal with the weather. I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need it. So
I'm the opposite of that, and I hear about it all the time because I can't wait for fall. I can't wait for the snow, and I'm the kind of guy I want a cold hard winter.
mhm.
You know, if we're gonna have winter, let's have it.
Yeah, fair.
It's fires inside and chilly for me,
Yeah.
and hot cocoa, and one of my favorite things to do. I live on 10 acres, and I've got a nice little path that I take the dogs in the morning. And boy, with the sun coming up after a fresh blanket of snow, with the steam rising up off the earth and the sun coming through the trees, it's hard to beat that for me. So I
Mhm.
really look forward to
Oh yeah. I think for me I was just jaded as a kid because we used to go those cold hard winters that you're describing as beautiful, majestic things. We would go camping in those, like tent camping.
that. Oh wow, that's tough. Yeah.
So I'm kind of good on that stuff. Like
Yeah.
we did it every there's like 1 or 2 months a year where it's like, okay, it's too cold, we're getting a cabin. But up until just like the end of November and then starting in February, it was tent camping all year long. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
like
Ooh, that's
I'm
chilly.
yeah. So
Yeah.
but growing up in Kalamazoo, born raised, you said in Richland, right? Not technically Kalamazoo,
Well,
or
that's right. I live in Richland now,
yeah.
and it's kind of funny because I grew up in Comstock, and that's kind of the rival township over. So
Mm,
there was the Comstock Colts is where I went to
yeah.
high school, and then there was the Gull Lake, which is in Richland, the Gull Lake Blue Devils, and they were, when I was going to school, it was like Gull Lake was our nemesis, and
Yeah.
um, Comstock when I was a kid was a pretty flourishing blue collar place to grow up. There was a GM plant here,
Mhm.
and it was a Class B school. But in the late '90s, I would guess that plant pulled out, which took a ton of
Mhm.
economics with it, and so a number of us have relocated to different parts of the locale who wanted to stay local. And Gull Lake area, Richland area is just a beautiful area.
Oh
So
yeah.
very happy here.
That's cool. It's unfortunate, but like I think that's happened all across the Midwest in general. There's
Oh yeah,
a lot of plants that have just pulled out of the area, whether they
yeah,
went somewhere else, or just went under altogether.
yeah. That's right.
So where does music kind of come into play? Was that something that was just kind of always there, or
No, I was a hockey player. All I ever wanted to be was a hockey player. That growing up in my mom and dad's home, they had a pond dug behind the house when they had their house built. So the winters, that's what we would do is we would ice skate. That was a family
Mhm.
thing, and I really took to that more than other sports. I remember playing little league baseball, and man, I was so bored. I just didn't take to baseball. There was so much waiting before something had to, before you got to engage.
Mhm.
I was in the outfield, you hear the crack of the bat, not your side of the field. So
Yeah.
you kind of just watch, and then you'd wait, and then maybe a guy would get to first base, and you're out there just kind of doing nothing. I'm building sand castles. Then I'd hear the crack of the bat, and I'd realize it's coming my way, and I got to find my glove because I had set my glove down so I can build sand castles out in the. So I think my OCD was not so conducive to a slow moving strategy game like baseball. So once I was introduced to the frenetic pace of hockey, and
Mhm.
the active engagement that hockey provides, is pretty much love at first sight. So
Oh, for sure. Now, was it just ice hockey, or do you play like roller hockey in the summer and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
predominantly ice hockey.
Mm.
As rollerblades were introduced in my
Yeah,
early teens, I had a pair of rollerblades, and we played a lot of roller hockey too, but there's no comparison. For what the difference is, it's a
yeah,
world of difference.
oh yeah,
If you're not used to either, you probably won't notice that much.
yeah,
When you're used to one or the other, it's just a world of difference.
yeah.
So,
When
I played a couple years of competitive, and then of competitive ice hockey, and then ended up coming back to Kalamazoo. Music was never part of any plan. I
Mhm.
was living at my grandfather's house, who was a talented musician, and he used to play the fiddle for us when I was a kid.
Oh wow,
So
nice.
he played the organ, and the keys. He played the guitar, and then one of his specialties was violin. Now, I don't know how relevant or how true this is, but my dad had said at one point that my grandfather was offered or had an opportunity to play in the Chicago Symphony.
Oh
He
wow.
was he was that proficient at it.
Mhm.
Turned it down to stay local and raise a family, but he was very good. And so I remember memories of sitting, cross-legged on the floor, and he would play the Orange Blossom Special for us. It sounded like a train coming through the room. So I just was gonna go. I was staying at his house. He had been admitted into a assistant care
Mm.
facility,
Yeah,
and so I was kind of staying there, helping to maintain the place while it was not
yeah,
occupied.
yeah.
And I knew he kept his fiddle under his bed, so I went into his bedroom and I reached under his bed, and I pulled out this great big guitar case. And I remember thinking, that's a damn big fiddle.
Hmm.
That's how kind of oblivious I was to instruments when I pulled the guitar case out. So I opened it up thinking it was a fiddle, and here's this guitar.
Yeah,
So I just started. I knew somebody that knew how to play locally. I had him teach me some chords, and I started playing very poorly and writing really bad songs. And then I started making trips to Nashville, and one thing led to another. And within a couple of years, I made the move to Nashville.
please tell me you tried to play the guitar like a fiddle.
No, I figured that out enough that
Okay.
I did not put it under my chin, but it was an extremely difficult foreign thing,
Yeah,
getting certain, fingers in position that you're just not used to doing. Um, it was very difficult up
yeah.
front.
I got you. And so at this point, how old were you? If you were making trips to Nashville, you had to be at least 16, right?
Oh, I
Or
was in my 20s.
okay,
I was probably 21, 22. I
okay,
think I moved to Nashville when I was 24.
okay. Gotcha.
So I was probably 21, 22 years old. The level of hockey that I played, there's a cutoff of 21.
Hmm.
So I would have been, right around that age.
Yeah, gotcha. And what was the not to jump back into hockey, but what was like the switch that was like, okay, hockey, it's fun, but there's not a future for me here.
Yeah, I had a number of concussions.
Mm,
I'm about 5'8", 5'7", and a half and three quarters and 9/16. And but I love the physical play. I
hmm.
love the rough play. I love to body check. I love to grind. I love to contact. Physics just wasn't on my side, So if I was going into a corner to dig a puck out with a defenseman that was 6'2", 200 pounds, I'm like, let's roll the dice and see how she goes,
Yeah,
And I did well for the most part, but there were times when that caught up with me, and
yeah,
um, I woke up on a stretcher a number of times, and after there were quite a few of them. I remember
hmm,
my dad finally saying, "How long are you going to do this?"
yeah,
Because I think after you probably watch somebody that you love that's completely incapacitated and has to be taken off the ice,
yeah,
after four or five, six times, they kind of start going, okay, you know, uh, this was still in the 90s too, keep in mind. So
yeah.
we didn't know, we've learned a lot in 20 years,
Oh yeah, about
about what,
CTE and all that.
yeah,
Yeah,
about the behavior of concussions. Everyone's different. Some people don't have, I never had any residual
yeah,
factors like that. Some people have headaches, their ears ring, they
Hmm.
have what is it when you're kind of dizzy?
Uh,
What do they
uh,
call that? You're like you can't
it starts with a
vertigo,
V.
like
Yeah,
vertigo. Yeah.
yeah,
So some people experience various things. I never had residual stuff, but I would get a concussion like in St. Louis, and then on the bus ride back, the trainer would have to wake up every, I don't remember what it was, half hour, two
yeah.
hours, whatever it is, just to make sure you didn't recess
Slip.
into,
Yeah,
recess
yeah,
into a coma or something.
yeah.
So that was the protocol back then. But it's like there was a night when I got a concussion on Friday. My family was in town to watch the game, and so our trainer at the time said, "No, he can't
Yeah.
skate." Well, the coach pulled me aside and said, "Are you okay? Do you want to skate?" And I said, "I think I'm fine." Because I wanted, my family was here. My mom
Yeah.
and dad had traveled to come see me play. And I got hit and I got hurt real bad the next night. And so our trainer ended up quitting, which he should have. He did the right thing.
Hmm.
Coach shouldn't have let me play. I should have been smarter than that. But I was going to tough it out and I'll be fine. Um, and that was one of the ones that was kind of the indicator was there's probably a very short road
Hmm.
here moving
Yeah.
forward.
Because that's the one thing I know about concussions is like once you get that first one,
Yeah.
it's easier and easier to get more, especially if you're prone to getting concussions.
And I don't know if this has any, if this is related at all, but as I get older, even in this talk, there
Hmm.
are periods where I freeze up, where I go, I can't grasp my words. And maybe that's just my nature. I don't know,
Hmm.
but it certainly is like I notice it and I go, I wonder if that's got any, residual effect from, what I smashed my head through for in my 20s.
That's fair. I mean, I was a wrestler in high school and I was never diagnosed with concussions, but I got thrown on my head a lot. So,
Yeah.
anything's possible.
Yeah.
Because I do the same thing where it's like I'll pause because I just can't get my words together. And yeah, so
Yeah.
I feel that. So after you left hockey, you were not babysit, house sitting for
That's
your
right.
grandpa. And
Yeah.
then was it an immediate move to Nashville, or was there like a few year gap before you decided to end up and go to Nashville?
No,
Or
no, the funny thing was I met a guy locally here and I had decided I wanted to get into music. And I don't even remember where we met, but he goes, "Well, man, you need a manager?" And I go, "Yeah, I think I do." And I go, "What do you know about managing?" He's like, "Nothing." I'm like, "Perfect. I don't know anything about music. So I think this is going to work out great. We're probably going to be taking over the world any second here, you
yep.
know?" But things did seem to happen pretty quickly. It started off, I was singing, I was playing a local bar, singing the karaoke tracks and just entertaining the crowd. It started off as almost like a underhanded karaoke show with, but it was just me.
Hmm.
And I was learning on the guitar, but I didn't know enough really to do very much. I knew a couple of songs and I would get the guitar on, I'd play a couple of songs, but I would not want to see those videos today. I bet it was not very good. I remember it was like Toby Keith was a song I was playing and I can't remember what song it was, but it might have been, should have been a cowboy or something.
Yeah.
Something easy, three chords. And then it slowly morphed into, playing original music and writing songs. And then I would make trips to Nashville. But really going down to Nashville was like trying to kind of soak it all in. I'd go down to
Yeah.
Tootsie's and I'd go down to the stage and I'd just sit in the back. In fact, people used to say, like I had made some friends there and we'd be out, drinking and they'd be like, "Dude, come on, have fun." And I'm like, "I am having fun." And I'm sitting in the back, just watching the band, um, watching the crowd,
Hmm.
just trying to kind of soak it all in. And there was a learning curve there,
Yeah.
with the entertaining aspect and being proficient enough on your instrument and singing in pitch. And there was a lot going on that I didn't even really truly understand the depth of what I was getting into, probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's so funny that you brought up like you'd go out to the bar and just essentially people watch and just kind of be aware of the surroundings and kind of analyzing the situation. That's the best way to kind of word it, is analyzing the
I think that's
situation.
that's exactly what it was.
Because I do the same thing, but that's from years and years of growing up in South Chicago. I
Yep.
have to know what's going on at all times, because if something jumps off, I got to be ready to do what I got to do. But
Yeah.
that's a completely different situation. But just kind of like watching the band, paying attention to what they do and how the crowd reacts, and just
Yeah.
kind of trying to figure out how you can flip that for your own show or your
That's
own
right.
music, you know.
And Nashville, you got this, of course, when at the time there was only probably 7 bars that
Mm-hmm.
were really hopping on Broadway. You had Tootsie's, Roberts, you had a Second Fiddle, The Stage, you had
Was
Crossroads,
the
Legend,
blues
Rippies. Yeah, the Blues Bar was up in Printer's Alley.
okay?
So that was uh I can't think of what that's called right now. Boogie
Isn't
Bar.
it BB
Oh,
King's?
BB King's, yeah,
Yeah,
Boogie Bar.
yeah,
Now the blues was something that I was oblivious to. I mean, my main focus was country music. In
yeah.
fact, when I moved to Nashville, I made some friends. I wanted to make a record. We had raised some money with my manager, so we were going to make a record to try to go out and shop and get a record deal.
Mhm.
And the producer, Bruce Boughton, who is one of the most recognizable session players in Nashville. He's a steel guitar player. They played on all of Garth's records and Shania
Mhm.
and bunch of these amazing records. We had secured him to produce the first record. And so before we had gone to record, he calls me one night and he says, "Hey, I've got 2 tickets to Petty at Starwood. You want to go?" And I was so country. Like the house that I grew up in, my mom and dad just loved country music. It was Vern Gosdin, it was Patsy Cline, Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, George Jones, Merle Haggard, Conway Twitty, like Dolly Parton.
Mhm.
It was nothing but country. We might have had a Beatles record. My mom loved Elvis. I'm trying to think of any other non-country records, and I can't really think
But
of it.
even Elvis, he had a lot of country influence in his
Yeah,
music.
well, that was her. I mean, Elvis is the king. Everybody
Yeah,
knew Elvis. So
yeah.
of course my mom loved Elvis. So when Bruce says, "I got 2 tickets to Petty, do you want to go?" I'm like, "Who's that?" And I had to. I mean, I'm not sure I probably said that, but I was like, "Yeah, man, love to," because I wanted to hang out with Bruce.
Hmm.
This guy played the steel guitar uh, tracks on Shameless for
Hmm.
Garth. That big steel guitar intro, that beautiful, soaring, beautiful steel guitar intro. I wanted to hang out with Bruce. Well, then of course we get to Starwood, and I'm like, oh, he sings this song. Oh,
Yeah,
he sings this song. Oh, he sings this song. So I knew who Petty was, but I just,
yeah,
I was so tuned into country. I was a country historian, catalog. I knew, I was making mixtapes in high school for my
yeah,
girlfriends, and
yeah.
that ain't
Back,
my truck in her drive.
back when you had to physically put a tape into the cassette player
That's
and
right.
hit record, and if you're doing it from the radio, if you were really good at it, you were able to get the full song. If you sucked at it, you'd chop off the first
Oh
three
yeah,
seconds, and
that's
yeah,
right. That's right. There were no cutting and pasting or dropping and dragging.
nope.
It was literally like the pickup, the introduction would come on, like you're saying, it'd be a radio thing, and you'd hit record, and what you got, you
Yeah,
got.
yeah. Yep. I had friends that they would the big alternative station was Q101, and they would just record an hour's worth of block, like whenever they were riding in the car with their parents or whatever, they would record a full hour, because that's what cassette tapes recorded at the time. And they'd come in just listening to this radio edited version of like this alt rock music, and I'm like, okay. And you look back at that time and it's like, boy, that was an interesting time to be alive. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so the all of this happening, you said this was around the time you were recording your first album. This
Yeah.
was
This
this
was
the American Vinyl, or was this before that?
this was before that. So Shine was the first record that we
Mhm.
did. And this would have been like 2004.
Okay.
So
Okay.
20
Gotcha.
years ago,
Yeah.
20 years ago. I can't believe that just came out of my mouth.
Hey,
It goes fast.
right? How does it, obviously the music industry's changed so much in the
Oh
last
man.
5 years, let alone the last 20 years.
Oh yeah.
But I, how does it feel to have come up in a music industry that was very infantile compared to where it is now, but like it was starting to become a little bit more digital in 2004? Yeah.
Yeah. It's changed so much as the distribution format has changed.
Hmm.
Well, and the styles changed. Um, the sound of country music has evolved so much.
Hmm.
You've had some throwback elements or periods or recordings that kind of pay homage to that 90s country thing, but
Hmm.
that 90s country thing was just a magical time for country music. The songs were
Yeah.
incredible, the singers were incredible, the music was just beautiful.
Hmm.
And it's hard to believe that people would get tired of that, but I think the music industry runs on trends,
Hmm.
and it just starts to bend to a different direction. And then you mentioned like the digital revolution. Once that really kind of took hold, I think, because you hear people complain. I'm a country traditionalist. I
Yeah.
love old school country. I love,
Oh yeah.
and I say old school, I'm talking Haggard and the standards, but
Yeah.
even like the 90s, like Brooks and Dunn and Alan Jackson, George Strait, and um, Joe Diffie and Mark Chestnut, and these great country singers. Um, as the distribution format has evolved to a more technology driven format, my dad was never going to go to his phone and buy a record.
Hmm.
So the industry probably looks at this and they take the purchasing demographic of what conventional country music was probably, 25 or 28 to
Hmm.
into the 60s. If you're buying Merle Haggard records and Vern Gosdin records, and you know this is an older demographic.
Hmm.
But as the accessibility to music itself has been reduced, now the labels are forced to, how do we maximize our ability to reach this little demographic?
Hmm.
And I think that's how you answer Taylor Swift. I think that's where you get, someone who has been so stratospherically, not only she makes amazing music, but it just happens to be specific to a massive demographic of people who are, you know,
Hmm.
boom, proficient on the phone,
Yep.
go download, go stream. Before streaming was even, I'm not even sure it's even perfected now, but before it was perfected, it was the younger generations that were on cue with Spotify, and then you watched Spotify kind of balloon into the main access point,
Hmm.
and then you watched Apple Music and these other ones kind of fall in behind it and take their own
Yeah.
kind of market share, Amazon and the others. But um it's all changed so much. It's made the volatility of the actual business side is it's changed that. Now you have all these 360 deals where labels are tapping into not just the sale of the recordings, which conventionally they did. It was
Hmm.
it was essentially, you signed me for a record deal, you owned the masters as the
Yeah.
label, you took in the money, and there was a cut, an artist cut, writer's cuts, that were paid out for that recording. But that's how the label essentially made most of their money, was just because you were selling in the 90s. Garth selling
Yeah.
15, 16, 17, 18 million units of No Fences. Shania selling millions of units. That's, if you wanted a single, you had to buy the
Yeah.
whole record.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
so it was like, if you want Friends in Low Places, you got to go buy No Fences.
Okay.
And all the other Collateral songs, they made that Collateral mechanical money because their song is with the CD that
Hmm.
Friends in Low Places is on.
Okay.
That's
And
dead.
then, yeah, and then they also, to rejuvenate and bring life into their new music or into older music that's been around, they'd release those the compilation
Sure.
albums of
Oh yeah.
like now that's what I call music or the best of country 19, like whatever random compilation it was. And then yeah, that wouldn't sell 17 million units, but it would sell a million maybe. I don't know.
Sure.
Like, and
Yeah.
so
Well, have you ever gone to like a greatest hits record of your favorite artist? And let's talk about a like a earth-shattering artist like Phil Collins.
Mhm.
You'll get like I want the greatest hits, but then In the Air is not on that
Yep.
CD. And you're like, "Are you kidding? How can you not do that?" And then you realize as you get older, or if you become more privy and aware to the music business, you're like, of course they do it on purpose. They ain't gonna go buy
Mhm.
another record,
Mhm.
So it's changed a lot of things. Um, the formats obviously changed, the distribution formats obviously changed, the demographic, the country music gotten younger. You've had
Mhm.
this huge swing of you know other styles of music that have heavily influenced recent
Mhm.
contemporary country music, with the exception of you got a few guys like, Cody Johnson that are I love what he does. I love what Luke Combs is doing. Even Luke's got some of those power chordy full arrangements, but they're he just writes such great music. And
Mhm.
Chris Stapleton's, I mean,
Yep.
he is a living legend.
Oh yeah. You think it's crazy now? Wait until AI comes into full swing and they start doing smart radio
Yeah.
where the it incorporates music that you like with either radio shows or podcasts or basically, and it becomes smart radio because it knows, okay, from Kalamazoo, Michigan, he's going to Nashville. That takes 5 hours. So it
Yeah.
auto populates a playlist that has like breaks in it. It has music. It has talking
Yeah.
segments. Boom, smart radio right there. So
Yeah, and I don't know. I've been so I moved back to Michigan in 2020. I haven't been in the mainstream scene in Nashville, for a few years, but
yeah,
I wonder how they're mitigating the AI thing on the
yeah,
writer end, because
they're not. It's
yeah, well, but the thing is if I ask AI to write me a song, and I
mhm,
want to write a song about my dog, who has a purple lollipop,
mhm,
you know, and it does that, and it
mhm,
tabulates, it kicks out this thing, and then I build a melody and I write a song and I deliver this to my publisher. How do they check that? Because someone else might come along and say, or let's say it's a copyright office, or let's say it's whoever, and they say, I would like to write a song about a dog with a purple popsicle or lollipop, and it's verbatim what I wrote. They
mhm.
can go, I mean, what are the odds of that? Not very good.
I
So
mean,
they can go, hey, this is obviously the program you used.
mhm. It's honestly it's funny you bring this up, and not to kind of side rail because I definitely want to jump into your new single here in a second.
Sure,
But
yeah,
you
yeah.
brought up an interesting point here. Is this is an issue I've seen come up recently, like, and it's not even necessarily AI, but you have the same issue where you'll have a writer write a song, but then sell it to several different musicians, and then the musicians release the song, and that creates a whole different thing. Because there's been a couple times where I've listened or had a musician, I was listening to their music. It's like, oh, cool song here, and then I'll go find another musician that releases the exact same song. So like I mean I think as long as AI hasn't there's really nothing they're going to be able to do because they haven't even been able to stop regular songwriters from doing something similar. So I don't know. I don't know what's going
Yeah,
on.
well, with what you just said, there would be a license involved for the first distribution.
Yeah.
Like if a song's never been released, you would have to get it licensed.
Yeah.
So either the publisher or the artist or the writer, whoever would have to issue that. Now, once
Yeah.
it's public domain, anyone can cover it, but you're still required to draw a license on it to provide mechanical, you know,
Yeah.
um,
And
royalties for that.
maybe that's the answer for AI. Like I because like I mean I understand where you're coming from because AI it has to pull its information from somewhere, and when it comes to songwriting,
Yeah. Well,
it's
it's
going to pull.
it's it's an amazing program. I mean, but that's the thing about songwriting too. Dude, it is the songwriting is very hard
Hmm.
when it's done well. Like if you when you rip a song apart, as a songwriter, and I listen to a song and I go, oh man, like their use of words, or just a little bit different phrasing pattern, or some nuance chord. They used a minor chord there instead of going to the major, just to give that little variation.
Hmm.
It's that is like the human part that you can't really, you know,
Hmm.
I don't want to say you can't replicate it, but it's what makes, like, when I listen to a song and I rip the song apart, and then I go, I'm like, I'm soaked into the writing side of it now more than anything. Is,
Yeah.
I moved to Nashville to be an artist, but I kind of bounced around and ended up kind of plinkoing into the songwriter slot. And, you know, when I go to see a writer, or if I get to meet my favorite writer, I got to do a show with Tony Arata here
Mm.
last December, and Tony wrote The Dance. He's written some unbelievable songs. But when you hear that and realize somebody sat down, in the depth of those emotions that they were able to articulate, not only on just like phrasing and words, but then you build this beautiful melody to it as well. Um, that's such a proprietary thing. It's not that I won't be able to do it, I guess, but I just think that's what makes the humanity of songwriting so special
Hmm.
and unique.
Yeah. And that's the thing about AI is I'm usually pretty good at telling like, okay, this was put together by AI. Like there's
Yeah,
certain inconsistencies in the voice or inconsistencies in the writing that
sure.
it's like, okay, normal human beings wouldn't put this right here. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't, but not a lot of people can pinpoint some of those inconsistencies because it just kind of is what it is. But no, I get what you're saying, and it's like I think that's going to be the next Napster revolution or Napster situation where they're trying to figure out, okay, what's the legalities of all this.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, but you did just release a new single,
Yep.
back in August. Yep, it's freaking crazy that it's mid
It's
September already.
it's crazy.
It's
It's
like,
crazy. I was just thinking of something the other day, and I'm like, was that 4 years ago?
right,
I can't
right.
even believe that was 4 years ago.
I was
Yeah.
sitting there. I was sitting there the other day. I was like, okay, I need to go. It's summertime. I need to go do something. And then I look and I'm like, no, it's freaking fall. What are you talking
Oh,
about? It's
geez.
summer.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. But you dropped a new single. If Heaven's Anything Like My Hometown.
Yeah.
What's kind of the story behind this song?
Well, I mentioned earlier, it was always going to be my ambition to get back to Michigan. It was kind of my, if there was a plan, it was, go to Nashville, make a couple of records, make some money, and then eventually settle back down in back where I'm from.
Hmm.
The Midwest, I'm wired for the Midwest. We talked about hockey, we talked about seasons, and every time I would come home, it would be harder to leave,
Hmm.
and there were a number of times I would say to my dad, I think it's time I come back. And he's like, no, you're where you need to be, kind of thing. And but at some point it was always going to be my end game to get back to Michigan. So
Hmm.
somebody had given me a book called Heaven, and written by a guy by the name of Randy Alcorn. And Randy's a pastor, and in it, he essentially breaks down what the Bible literally says about heaven.
Hmm.
So, we have some of these, um, like we have these, like this idea of heaven that we're going to be floating on a cloud and strumming a harp, the kind of Looney Tunes,
Hmm.
visions of this is what heaven's going to be. But I'd really never had a painted picture of what the Bible said about heaven. And I didn't realize it was going to be a physical place, so there's a lot that I got into that I was like, whoa, like we're going to get glorified. The Bible says that followers of Christ will get a glorified body just like he did. I never knew that. So I'm just starting to think in my head, like, if this is true, then feasibly, the memories that I filled my memory bank with throughout my life very well could be things that I recognize and realize for eternity. And so anyway, that was kind of the impetus of it. And then, I start, driving around on a Sunday, and I see people coming out of church here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And you get the snapshot as you're driving by. You don't get to watch the whole thing, but you're driving by and you see, people are hugging each other.
Hmm.
You know, that was part of me always wanting to come back to this area. Was I met these amazing people, hardworking. The Midwest is full of hardworking, persevering, rust belt, can do, blue collar, get it done. It's its own culture, like the South
Hmm.
is,
Yep.
and so I just started thinking, man, if heaven's anything like this, wow! Between the book and the illustrations, visualizations, that I had in my head of what I loved about this area so much, that's where kind of the song started and kind of took off from there.
Nice, nice, nice. And how's the reception? It's been out for almost 6 weeks at this point.
Yeah, it's been great. The best thing I think as a songwriter is when you get emails from people. I actually just saw a thing. Alan Jackson, he got like some huge achievement award,
Mm.
a lifetime achievement award or something. And one of the comments that he made was something to the effect of, just knowing that you've created a piece of work that will influence another human being, whether it gets them through a hard time or makes them smile or makes them fond of an old memory, and kind of reminisce. I think for me, anyways, that's the kind of music I want to make. Country music went through a phase where it's very like the bro country thing was just not my jam.
Mm.
I love sad country songs. I love songs with depth, storytelling, something that makes me feel something. So yeah, with heavens, if heaven's anything like my hometown, I've gotten a number of emails from people just saying, this song has affected them, or it's inspired them, or it's made them feel a certain thing, and that's like the best. It's the best thing ever.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's definitely a catchy tune. I enjoy listening to it. Obviously we extended out the time we've had before the podcast because we were supposed to do this last week, like we had
Yeah,
mentioned.
that's
And so it
right.
gave me an opportunity to kind of jump in and listen a little bit more to your music. And this is a good one. Yeah, it's everything that you said it was, and it's so much more. So
I appreciate that.
yeah.
When you record songs, well, when you write a song, you put a lot of time into it. You
Hmm.
spend a lot of time with a song. You're honing and crafting and cutting and shaving and filling and sculpting, and then once you think that you've got it done, I think after you've written for long enough, you learn you don't know if it's worth a damn or not. You
Hmm.
think it might be. I really like
Yeah.
this. Maybe you like X song,
Yeah.
but until you start playing it out and seeing what it does, and and then once that seems to kind of get past that phase, then you talk about going in, okay, this song makes me feel good. I'm glad I wrote it. I go out and I play it. It gets a good reaction. I think the song is worth going in and spending the time and the money and the resources to put a track in.
Yep.
But you have to sit down with the band. You talk about how this should go down, or what
Yep.
you feel for this thing, what your vision is, style wise, what we want, elements that we want to use. And then you've got all the work in the studio to refine the production, the arrangement, get all the sounds in order, and get the mix right, and then get it mastered. So, all of that to say that when you finally get that final product, and it's what you hoped it could be,
Hmm.
that's a great feeling. And this is one of those songs that once it was done, it's like, man, I'm so proud of that. Uh,
Yeah.
that's the kind of music I want to make, the steel guitar and the storytelling, and a little unconventional, structure, song structure there, where it's not just, chorus, verse chorus, bridge chorus out, type
Hmm.
thing. So it's a song I'm very proud of, and I hope gets out there and does something great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will, especially as the Fall. I got yeah, the fall. That's another weird one to kind of admit that we're in. Um, but as the fall kind of rolls out and whatnot, I don't see why this song isn't gonna just do amazing things for you as a musician. So yeah.
Yeah, it's tough as an independent artist. You're an independent writer artist. You're registering these songs with whatever independent distribution
Mm.
platform that you
Who are,
choose.
who are you distributing now? Are you through like CD Baby or something else?
TuneCore is what I
TuneCore.
use. Yep.
Yeah.
And getting editorially playlisted on a platform like Spotify, would be a game changer for anybody
Hmm.
like me, any songwriter, independent songwriter. It's very difficult, and there's some politics probably at play there. Um, and that's the hope. Spotify's got a program. I think Apple Music does as well, where you can submit songs, for
Hmm.
consideration. Um, and you do that and you hope for the best, but it's just
Yeah.
tough to get. It's tough to reach new listeners if you're not out on tour, getting in front
Yeah.
of throngs of fans or getting on large platforms of visibility. But it's neat to watch it grow and to get, like I say, the feedback.
Yeah.
People saying, "Hey, so and so showed me this song, and this makes me think of my grandpa, or this makes me think of my family back home, or whatever." That's really cool.
Oh yeah, for sure. Speaking of out on tour, how often are you playing shows right now? Are you playing pretty consistently or are you
I'm starting to wind down. So
okay?
my busy season, being an independent guy, my busy season pretty much is from March, end of March until right about now. You
Hmm.
know, I went out and I hit the road for many years when I was living in Nashville with the van and the trailer and going out and playing whatever honky tonk would let you in the door. Um, and so I don't travel as much as I used to on purpose. I do a little bit of traveling, but I try to stay in the Midwest area. I'm going to be in Milwaukee or in Kenosha next weekend. Um, but I don't hammer the road like I used to. So because of that, the Midwest, once it gets cold, they close up the outdoor festivals and it kind
Hmm.
of it kind of tears off a little bit. But by right now, I'm ready for a break. I've been, running 4 nights a week since March, pretty much. Um, I've got this cold I'm dealing with,
Yeah.
so it's nice that I don't have any work this weekend. I get to just kind of let this thing run its course. But yeah, I'll start slowing down a little bit, and then I'll recluse pretty much in November. I'll deer hunt for a month, and
Nice.
then start writing songs to get ready for the next recording session in April.
That's what I miss about living in Illinois. When I was going to school, all my friends were hunters. They would deer hunt, turkey hunt, dove hunt, and anytime they'd go home, it's like, all right, we're gonna eat good for the next couple of weeks because they're gonna bring all that back here. And yeah, so
Yep. Well, on my
it's
freezer, so I've got a freezer full of deer right now, but
mhm.
the ground venison, um, I'm down to about 12 pounds. I'm looking and as I'm going and pulling up, making tacos and I'm making spaghetti sauce, and I'm
Yeah.
realizing like
Oopsies.
there's something out there walking around right now that's not going to be walking around in about a month and a half. But
Right,
I got to fill the freezer. So
right. So you'd mentioned you're going to Kenosha. Are you opening for the Kenosha Kickers?
no, I don't know who that is. Who's the Kenosha Kickers?
No, it's a Home Alone reference. So
Oh, is that
Gus,
wasn't John Candy, was
yep,
it? Was it really?
That was John Candy's band.
Very big in Sheboygan. Very big in Sheboygan. You remember
Yeah,
that?
that was just like, let's tee it up, see if he catches it. If
Was that
not,
the name of
the
their
one of the
band?
bands that he was in was the Kenosha
The
Kickers.
polka band. It was a
Yeah,
polka band. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, that's hilarious. No, I don't remember that, but it's a Midwest or Flannel Fest. It's a Flannel
okay,
Fest out there. I
nice.
played it a couple years ago. It's a great place. It's in a,
Yeah,
a beer garden. It's this outdoor thing, and I mean it's a neat event.
nice. Cool. And then just as we kind of wrap this up, outside of music, what do you like to get into? Obviously you'd
Oh
mentioned you
man.
like to hunt.
Yep, I like to hunt. I love to golf. Golf is a love-hate thing.
Fair.
I like to golf when I'm doing well. I hate golf when I'm not doing well, and that's most of the time. So I golfed back in June. It was the last time I've golfed. We golfed this a friend of mine and I golfed Inverness in Toledo, Ohio. This is very nice, like PGA
Hmm.
course. And I golfed so bad. I was actually on my way out to New Jersey for the week, and I was going to go out. That took a couple of extra days to go out early to go to New Jersey just so I could
Hmm.
golf. And I golfed so bad in Toledo that I put my clubs away, and they haven't been out since.
Fair,
So,
fair.
wait, but once the weather cools, I don't like to golf when it's like 140 degrees.
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
it's going to start getting into nice fall golf weather here, and I'll test my luck again. But I like to golf. I like, I grew up in the trades. I still do a lot of like remodeling and trades projects. I just getting ready to finish my barn out so I can
Nice,
work down on the barn and make furniture and just tinker around with various projects there. Um, but I'm
nice.
trying to think of all the
Do
things
you
I'm in. Somebody.
do you watch or like do you still watch hockey even though you don't play it that
Oh
much
yeah,
anymore?
that's the only thing I watch. In
Okay.
fact, like I don't get into Yellowstone. I mean,
Yeah.
this is gonna shock people. I've never seen Breaking Bad. Never seen one episode of Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, Yellowstone, any of these.
Hon- Honestly, I didn't watch Yellowstone until I told you I had COVID last Christmas.
Yeah,
I was stuck at home for 2 weeks and I just kept seeing these ads for freaking Yellowstone. And I'm like,
yeah,
all right, I got NBC Peacock on my phone or whatever. So I just
yeah.
started watching it and I was like, crap, now I got another show I got to watch. Thanks.
Well,
Thanks.
that's exactly what it is. So
Yeah.
so I watch hockey to answer your question. I
Yeah.
get the NHL Center Ice package because I'm a fanatic. I like to watch all the games. I like to see the matchups. We play fantasy hockey with a group of friends
Yes.
of mine. So you're following players. But outside of that, if it doesn't enrich me somehow,
Hmm.
like I'll get on YouTube. The only thing I get on YouTube and I watch pastors that I like. I get on and I watch. There's a very interesting thing going on in science right now that I'm fascinated. There's some theistic scientists that are kind of blowing the lid off from conventional, evolution
Hmm.
and creation and design and
Yeah.
but they're using the science. It's not like this
Yeah.
hocus pocus, believe in this
Yeah.
it's like, oh, here's the science and this
Yeah.
can't happen.
Yeah.
So I'm really fascinated and tuned into that a lot. But if it doesn't enrich me, if it doesn't
Yeah.
make me more intelligent, wise, then I don't even, I try to do things that, so I get in a read, I've got a big group of books that I haven't even
Hmm.
gotten to yet. So I try
Yeah.
not to just empty watch TV very much.
Fair. Very fair. Who's your hockey team?
The Detroit Red Wings.
Fair. What being in Kalamazoo, it could have gone either way. It could have been Detroit. It could have been Chicago. I don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
it could have
Yeah.
gone. Yeah. I used to watch hockey when I was living in Chicago, and then when the strike happened in '04,
Yeah.
I kind of,
What
I
year was
or
this?
was it '03, '04, whatever it
It
was.
was in there somewhere. I can't
Yeah.
remember. Yeah.
And I kind of fell out of watching hockey, and then went into college and I started working at a bar, and all of a sudden, all these friends that would ridicule me for watching hockey all the time, they're all of a sudden like super hockey fans because all of a sudden the Blackhawks got good.
Oh, they were
Because
those teams. That was like, was that 2012 or something
yeah,
to
yeah, so
2015,
somewhere in
16?
that somewhere in that ballpark, all of a sudden the Blackhawks got really good,
Yep.
and everybody's like a super Blackhawks fan. And it's so funny now because I'll go back and look through like my Facebook memories, and I'll make comments like, "Well, at least I ain't a Blackhawk or bandwagon Blackhawks fan," and everybody would get super pissed at me. And now most of those people don't even mention the Blackhawks anymore. And I'm
Yeah.
like, see, this is why I didn't jump back on the bandwagon because
Yeah. They'll
you
be
know,
good again
yeah.
with Connor. What is his? I can't even think of his name now.
But Connor Bedard.
Bedard. Yeah. I can see as
Yeah,
soon as I say Connor, I go right to McDavid.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, Bedard. I thought he was going to get killed.
yeah,
I mean, if he can survive the next year or two, he'll be fine. He's got a
yeah,
great release. He's a smart player, but he's so frail.
yeah.
I mean, he's not like you have these other like what's the kid's name
Oh,
that plays for New Jersey? Jack. Uh, I can't think of it.
yeah. I
Anyway,
don't.
but when he came in, he was just young. They're
Mhm.
18, 19 years old. They're very frail. Connor was a different story though, dude. He
Yeah,
he looked like he was just gonna, if he would have gotten hit,
yeah.
I mean,
Like I mean, he's not Ovechkin where he came in
no,
looking like a tank. At
no,
what
no.
was he like 18 when he came into the league or whatever?
Yeah, probably. I don't remember. That was a long time ago. He's been in
Yeah,
the league for 30 years. So, it's like, it feels like
right.
anyways.
Right. It's like when I was watching during like Chris Chelios,
Oh
Madonna,
yeah.
like I'll sit here and name off like a bunch of hockey players. Most of these kids don't even know who they are anymore. It's
Oh, I
like,
got a I got a great story before we go. So
yeah,
there's a bar in Nashville called Tin Roof, and there's a couple
hmm
of them actually, but the main one is on Demumbrian.
yeah,
And it was where it was kind of like the Preds would hang out there after their games back in the early 2000s, and you'd see guys anyway. All my friends hung out there, and that was kind of the main place to go before Nashville really blew up.
hmm
Tin Roof on Demumbrian was kind of like everyone goes there. So I was meeting some friends there, and I walk in. The place is pretty empty because that's probably like, I don't know, 6, 7 o'clock,
hmm
and the Phoenix Coyotes were in town. And so I go into, uh, they were going to be in town the next night, but they got
hmm
into town obviously early, or, the night before. So I walk in, and there's Jeremy Roenick sitting on top of, between two booths, like
hmm
sitting up on top.
yeah,
And I go to I look, and I'm like, whoa, growing up as a hockey fan,
yeah,
like this is one of the, premier legends of my
yeah,
time, of
hmm
like growing up and watching him play in Chicago. He was
yeah,
such a stud.
yep,
And he's sitting there just by himself. And I'm like, no way. So I'm like, I ordered 2 beers. I walked over and I handed him one. And he goes, what's up? I said, nothing. I said, I grew up in hockey, and I'm looking around, and I think it's pretty hilarious that people have no idea who you are. And he goes, yeah, it's kind of nice here, because when Nashville started really kind of establishing themselves as
hmm
a, not just a hockey relevant hockey team, but a hockey market,
hmm
it became a very attractive place for the players to come to.
oh yeah,
And but anyway, he goes, have a seat. So I got to sit there for about a half hour and
mm,
just BS with him. And it was great because nobody
yeah.
knew who he was. They're just walking by. I'm like, if you people had any
Any
idea.
idea? I actually I had a similar story. It wasn't hockey related. This is more music related. I was at a coffee shop here in town, and I live in Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
And I was at a coffee shop. I had just moved here. It was right before, like literally like a month before the pandemic. I was waiting on a friend, and the bass player from Metallica,
Oh,
Robert Trujillo, comes walking in.
oh, wow.
And like he just comes walking in, grabs a coffee, and leaves. And I'm just sitting there. I didn't catch him on the way in because I was like looking, I was trying to get something accomplished. But I
Yeah.
look up because I just see this big lanky dude with long black hair. And he turns around and I'm like, did Robert Trujillo just walk through this coffee shop and nobody said a damn thing?
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
yeah. It's
It's
but
those are the best.
yeah. I've often said though that if I ever got to move to Nashville and went to a Predators game, that would probably get me back into hockey.
It's one of the best
Yeah.
atmospheres. It really is. The in-game announcer, Paul, is the best in the league, I think.
Mm.
He's just amazing. A friend of mine works for the Preds organization, and when I first moved to town in '02, dude, you could get a ticket for like $7.
Yeah.
And they couldn't give them away fast enough.
Yeah.
Now that's very different. The Predators are a formidable force in the league. They're a relevant team. A lot of non-traditional markets like Phoenix and Florida and Dallas and Nashville have cultivated some really competitive teams and
Well,
created some really substantial hockey markets.
didn't Phoenix just go to Salt Lake?
They
Salt Lake City?
did, but
Yeah.
they did, and I knew as soon as I said that, I'm like, oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they have feverish fans there in the
Yeah.
desert. I mean, it
Yeah.
was heartbreaking to see, for those fans to have to watch their
Yeah.
franchise,
I mean, I imagine it'd probably be like any other sports league. Give it 5 years, they'll have another team there.
well, they
Like,
said Bettman, the commissioner, made it, basically had said if they can show relevant plans, because I think there was some management,
Yeah.
planning management issues. They didn't have a rink and they couldn't get zoned or they
Hmm.
couldn't get approved. And basically, I think the commissioner's looking at it like, hey, we got to have a relevant franchise here,
Yeah.
playing in a market that is suitable, for a team to
Yeah.
exist.
It's a different story from like the Oakland Athletics that they don't have like they have fans, but the fans don't show up and there's
Yeah.
no support for the team. Whereas there's support for the Phoenix Coyotes, but they just don't have the infrastructure in play. Like it's yeah. So I 100% get it.
Yep,
So
you just froze around me. You're good. You're
okay.
so you said there's support for the Phoenix Coyotes.
Yeah, so basically the support is there, just not the infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, but anyways, so if anybody wants to check out your new single plans for the rest of the fall, obviously you mentioned things are kind of winding down for the winter a little bit, but
Yeah,
if people
just
want to
for the
check you
live
out,
stuff. Yep. Yep. So we got another single coming down the pike called In Your Blood.
mhm,
That'll probably drop next month. I'm thinking, let's see, what is this? Yeah, so probably the middle of October. Um, we'll actually announce that probably, I think, next week.
yeah,
Um, and then another single will come in November, uh, called There's No Me Without You. And then that'll kind of kick off the hibernation stage for me for the wintertime when I go in and recluse and just start getting ready to go into the studio next spring and start writing more songs. So
nice,
there's still more music coming, um, at least for next couple of months.
nice. So just kind of doing that. Where's the best place for anybody to find you as all those announcements and stuff kind of come out?
Yeah, so my website's kylejenningsmusic.com. I primarily use Instagram. I don't use Facebook very much. There's too much drama on Facebook for me. The Instagram is easy because it's kind of like you get to stay in touch with people that you want to stay in
Mhm.
touch with. I liked your picture and get on with my life, kind
Yep.
of thing. And at Kyle Jennings 13 on Instagram. There's a YouTube channel out there. I don't work it very much like I should. That's the other thing we talked, just real quick going back into it. There's so much stress on an artist to
Hmm.
create content. You know, it's like I want to focus on writing songs. I don't want to focus on showing people what kind of brownies I made today. You know what I mean? And there's a demand for that. So
Yep.
that's another change in the landscape where it's like, hey, we're at the park, and you got to post a quick video, and that becomes, redundant and cumbersome
Hmm.
too. And I get it. It's kind of part of the nature of the beast. Um, but I think it also takes away from
All
the
right.
exclusivity of here's the music, you know, uh, focus on that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It's it takes away from the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
Like as you were saying that, this popped into my head. One of the first year we did Live and Amplified, we went down to a bluegrass festival down in the Florida Keys. We did like interviews and acoustic sets with some musicians down there. We have invited down by the festival, all this fun stuff. And the main day was a Sunday because it was happened like right before like Martin Luther King weekend, I think is where it
Yeah.
was.
Yep.
And so the main day we were from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. It was nonstop all the way through like interviews,
Oh,
acoustics,
wow.
just like all this stuff. And there was a 7 minute gap in the day where we didn't have anything. And we were sitting right up against the ocean. There was like a rock. And so we sat down on the rocks and took a quick photo and put it out on Instagram. And everybody thought all we'd been doing all day was just screwing around, having a good old time in the Florida Keys.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
this was literally 1/10 of a second of a day
Yeah.
of pure chaos. If you guys only knew what we had been
Oh,
doing
yeah.
all day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Everybody wants their thumbprints, their touch, taste, and feel you at all times.
yep, absolutely. But really appreciate your time. It's been an absolute blast.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Thanks so much for having me, Tom. It's been great. I really enjoyed it.
yeah. Uh, Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you'd like to check if heaven's anything like my hometown, links in the description. All Kyle's music description. Check it out. I would definitely appreciate that. Once again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you all later.